Hello and welcome to Is This England, a show where we talk about old and new England games and ask just how England was this.
So Gareth Southgate has named what could be his final England squad, and Euros fever is rising. Let's get into it.
You may be a stranger, that's what time can do. Baby, you mean everything to me.
Now I'm aware that he will name another squad. This is a provisional squad that has been announced, right? But good to see you, Nick. Anyway,
Yes, good to see you. Good to be with you listeners as we approach a tournament.
Euro 2024, which is actually taking place on the year it's supposed to this time.
Yeah, in 2024, I was gonna say you're gonna add that to it from now on as well. Euro 2024 in 2024.
We had to do it for once. I know we have to do it for all the rest, else it's just wrong.
Even though
But
we just skipped Qatar totally.
yeah, you're gearing up to go out there. We'll probably talk about that on a couple of pods that come out before then. When do you go? What games here around?
It's England Serbia, I think, is the opening game.
Yeah.
And me and a mate are going to be out. So it's on the Sunday. It's on the Sunday. It's on the Sunday. Yeah. So we fly out on the Saturday. We go to Berlin, then get the train to Gelsenkirchen, which is where the game is. And the next day, a surprisingly early train for me to have booked it. The next day to go to Frankfurt to get a flight back to Birmingham. So
Okay.
lots of early starts, which I stupidly planned. So
You
let's see
didn't
how that goes.
you didn't want a relaxing time. You wanted a good time
I mean,
and an efficient time.
I'm going with our friend Adam Power. It's not going to be a relaxing time at all. It is going to be non-stop chat and stats. Hi, Adam.
Say it will be a good time though.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, the big boy shit is happening right about now. Um, I was driving home from work thinking I'd love to listen to a podcast about today's squad announcement, and lo and behold, decided to make one. Yeah, so it's a provisional squad day. I think, are we talking what, 33, 30, 30 names?
There's a lot of people there, aren't there? There's a lot of names. Some you go, yep, they're just your standard ones. Then a couple of like, wow, interesting. I thought it was 30, but I'm probably wrong. I think I am on that. It must be 33. 33 is a lot.
Yeah,
A
so
lot of like travel. That's a lot of bibs. It's just a lot of like free meals, basically.
yeah, definitely the Ineos Man United owners would be cutting those costs. We don't need 33. We don't need 33 bibs.
Like, listen, Crystal Palace lads, just get there in one car.
Yeah,
all
that's
all
true.
of you, just one of you drive, one of you be sensible. The rest of you in the boot.
Receipts, petrol receipts, and if you're eating, you go to Greg's. Um, so 33 players in this provisional squad to be trimmed down to 26. I think it was only recently that it became 26 instead of 23. So
Mm.
looking at this, you're like, God. I mean, there are certain names where you're like, yep, they will go. I think, we'll have a look at the squad in depth, talk about the headlines, I guess, and maybe look at picking it apart in terms of who would probably drop off. I think that might be quite an easy task. I could be wrong.
Mm.
Um, but some surprises, some good, conversational starters anyway. Let's have a look through it then, bit by bit. Actually, one more thing. Do you know when he has to turn it into a 26-man squad?
Yeah, it is Friday the 7th of June. So I think it's the day England are playing what is being called their farewell game against Iceland at Wembley. So it's
Yeah.
that night they have to decide it by. So there's only, I think there's two games. In these are the build-up ones,
Bosnia,
and
isn't it?
yes, Bosnia, then Iceland. So Bosnia's at St James's, and then Iceland at Wembley. I mean, that's
Yeah, yeah.
that's like you. What are you doing? Why are you not taking that one around the country somewhere fun?
No, no. Right then, let's have a look at the goalkeepers. Starting off with, should we just talk through them all and then we can actually dissect it, or what do you want to
Yeah,
do?
yeah. Should we just give a load of names? Let's just
Yeah,
do it so people can tick them off and just go, yeah. And it because actually, let's slightly speak about leaking.
Yeah,
So
no, that's fine. Yeah, because it's been a full day. As it, I was in a meeting from 9 till 12, and I did get a chance to have a look at my phone at about 10. I think the announcement was at 2, but there was already stuff
yeah.
coming through then. And then, yeah, I felt like by the time it came out, I knew what really. And then I looked back at WhatsApp messages I'd missed, and yeah, there was a lot of names being bandied about.
Yeah, it was obviously it was really odd because you start to get to realize whose favorite journalist is whose. Like
Yeah,
so the bit so like we'll talk about Rashford for example, but you do feel like his camp are quite up to date with like Ornstein and like the cool but verified journalists.
yeah,
And then it seemed like other ones were just coming out at different times. Like I definitely saw a post that was like Levi Colwell will be meeting up with the squad, and it was like, and it came out he wasn't, and I was like, oh, I'd love to go back and see who said that, who got
yeah,
like dealt like the dud information.
yeah, yeah. I thought he said will not. Or will. I got which one was it? We're on deadline. We need to know. You know what? I can't be sure. I
It's
can't
not
be
that
sure.
important. Can we just print both?
Yeah. A lot of leaking, definitely, and a bit of madness. I remember. I think I must have mentioned this before, but prior to one of the World Cup, I think 2018, there was Leon Bailey as a last kind of minute rumor because I don't think he'd played for. I think he plays for Jamaica. I don't think
Mm,
he'd played for them by that point, and there was a like that weird sort of quirk where he could choose to play for England. Hadn't played for
mm.
England, but been having a good season in Germany, and they were like, "Yep, Southgate's going to surprise us all and take Leon Bailey,
With a man we've never really heard of, a past like football manager.
who it will take 5 years for him to go to Aston Villa and 6 years for him to turn good."
Be
Yeah,
good, yeah.
what could have been? Eh? Anyway, let's have a look at the goalkeepers. Uh, Dean Henderson, Jordan Pickford, Aaron Ramsdale, and James Trafford. Defenders, Jared Branthwaite, Lewis Dunk, Joe Gomez, Mark Gehi, Esri Konsa, Harry Maguire, Jarell Quansah, Luke Shaw, John Stones, Kieran Trippier, and Kyle Walker. Do you want to give us some midfielders, Nick?
Yeah, midfielders. So just branching over into midfielders, technically defended Trent Alexander-Arnold, Conor Gallagher, Curtis Jones, Kobe Mainu, Declan Rice, Adam Wharton, and then included in the strikers, I don't like this, Jude Bellingham.
Attackers,
Yeah,
surely.
it's attack as it is, but I still don't like Jude being in there. But still, Jude Bellingham, Jared Bowen, Eberechi Eze, Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, Anthony Gordon, Harry Kane, James Madison, Cole Palmer, Bukayo Saka, Ivan Toney, and Ollie Watkins. All I think you would agree are names.
Yes, it's right then. First, what is your actual first impression? Maybe sum it up in a word or in a couple of words. I think I would go
Busy is mine.
busy. Okay, okay.
People are
Ex-
very busy in this team.
explain busy then.
Doesn't feel like there's a lot of like luxury in there. It feels like there's actually a lot of like good quality, but a lot of grafting. It's not like you feel like someone's gonna have to be in the team where everyone's got to track back for them because they don't do the job. There's a lot of like honest players in there, and also just quite there's something as well of like a little preview to what the kind of that next generation is going to be. He's included a lot of like uncapped players or low capped players, and you feel like when the ride does stop after the tournament and most likely Southgate leaves, there'll be a lot of the players who probably leave with him, and he's probably going, actually, there's a couple of names in here I probably may just want to get in just so that next person, like they're not in the squad for the first time or they're in the conversation at least.
Yeah, my couple of words or phrase or whatever would be surprisingly progressive because I just thought it would be right. Come on, greatest hits, everybody,
Yeah.
regardless of anything else. But there's a lot of players in there, like some have kind of made the self. If you don't pick them, it's a story, such as Cole Palmer.
Mm.
Others like Anthony Gordon, Curtis Jones, Kobe Mainu, all having good seasons. But like you say, I think it's maybe a bit of a let's continue. If this is the end, like let's have the end be a legacy builder and not necessarily like a full stop and an underline on,
Yeah.
because you could look back in the future and say Southgate's done really well to set up this team for ex manager who's won a trophy with England for the first time since 1966. Because I don't think it's
Yeah.
going to happen in this summer. I could be wrong. Um, big headlines then. The biggest headlines I would say are omissions rather than inclusions.
Mhm.
So Henderson, I think everyone would have been pretty certain Jordan Henderson was coming into this squad. Kind of played himself into the starting 11 at the World Cup and has become a bit of a polarizing figure since he's moved to Saudi Arabia and then to Ajax. And I think people just thought, regardless of what happens, there's a reason why Southgate is so high on him. And that's because he likes him around the squad and he'll be part of that squad. Maybe he'll have to earn his place in the start 11 back. But then at the
Mm.
same time, that place where he played in the last World Cup still hasn't got an outstanding candidate who's made it their own. So there's every likelihood I wouldn't have been shocked to have seen him start, but he's not in the squad.
Yeah, and I think Southgate said that it was a really difficult one because it was due to injury he's been carrying. So in the last England camp, he went with an injury, and since then he's played for Ajax, but not a lot, and he's not been able to get like the. I think in as Gareth said, I guess something said like impact or something like that. He's not been able to get the sharpness in his game, and I think it's just for the best that he doesn't go. And it's like almost like an accidental good decision. And I think he obviously wanted to be loyal to him and wanted to take him. I don't think anybody really thought it was a good idea what he brings to the team itself in terms of on the pitch stuff. Maybe off the pitch stuff, he could still go if he's a popular player and be part of like the backup staff and anything like that. But yeah, him not being in it, I think is just better for everybody, probably including him as well.
I was thinking that on the way back. I was thinking, there isn't an outstanding candidate who's made the position their own, but there's good players in there, and it becomes a story. And like you say, it kind of is for the best. If he's carrying a bit of an injury as well, let's just call it like now and just say, you know what, let's Gareth go and enjoy yourself. I'll be here.
Yeah.
I'll be waiting for a beer when you come back. But just on Jordan Henderson, there is a story on uh iNews, which I guess is the Independent, by Daniel Story. Headline: Jordan Henderson's England career is over, and it's all his own fault.
What a weird headline.
Yeah,
It's over and you've done this, you prick.
yeah, it's a weird one, and again that kind of links into why it's good that he's probably not there from the sense of my biggest concern and why I'm not actually my Euros fever is low, and
Mm.
the big reason for that I think is I just can't do really another summer of the whole focusing on minor things about like Southgate. This is why Southgate's bad because he'll still pick Henderson, or this is why he's bad because he does this,
Mm.
and then having to defend that, and then it's just there's no unity. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of people like on both sides of the mental fence were kind of in agreement that Jordan Henderson's time would probably come, and it seemed
Yeah.
strange to me as a big fan of Gareth Southgate that he seemed to want to stick with him. Somebody in my office today said, "Why go through all the qualifiers with him playing all around the squad to just do it this stage?" And I think the answer to that really is that Kobe Mainu wasn't really there up until the last squad, and he came into that at the last minute.
I think that's the thing. You've had a couple. There's been two players really who we'll talk about who have probably all of a sudden become like real options and will add more to the team than Jordan Henderson, even if fully fit at this stage. So that's
Mm.
and then there's also like the Arnold thing, which we'll talk about too. But there's just all of a sudden it's probably come too quick for them to be naturally bedded into the squad in a normal way, but it's kind of like shit. We haven't done the Christmas shopping. That's good enough. That's expensive. Just get it in the bag and wrap it quickly.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's what mine new and Wharton are really.
yeah. I haven't seen much of Wharton, I've got to say, but I've heard very good things. That's bad on my part, really, because I know Crystal Palace have been, tearing things up in the Premier League. So excited to see what happens, kind of there. I feel like you know everyone's got an audition there that is like I would imagine that Adam Wharton is the name to drop just but what if he starts one of the two games and does really well or impresses Southgate in training, then he might go. Who knows? Um Possibly a bigger story or equally as big, but player at a different stage of his career to Jordan Henderson is Marcus Rashford. Um Surprised me that he's not in the squad. Again though, I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think Like I think having Henderson in the squad is probably a net negative from a footballing perspective. I don't think Marcus Rashford was a net negative, but I think it might be a positive that he's not going because of who might go instead of him and just form and things like that. What do you think of this one?
It's I thought he'd probably go just because even when he's not been doing well for club, he's always seems to have done well for country. Like he's never really, you see, and he starts a lot of the games where England probably should win, so he'll be very quick in terms of getting that in.
Chelsea have just sacked Maurizio Pochettino.
Mid pod.
Madness.
Wow.
Sorry, you carry on there.
No,
Hey,
no.
New England manager candidate just
Here
dropped.
we go. That's more what I want to see. Yes, he's out of all of them. Let's talk about that. Get Poch in after Southgate. Yes.
So we're talking about
Um,
Rashford. Sorry.
Yeah, Rashford. I think it's just the case of he's had a bad season. Clearly, he usually does well for England, and he usually plays when England aren't going to play really good teams, and that's kind of where he gets his confidence from. I mean, he scored at the last World Cup. I think he got 3 goals. And one
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
things that always annoys me when looking back at that tournament is everyone's like, God, Southgate misused brilliant Marcus Rashford and all this
yeah.
kind of rubbish. When they were like, oh, we only gave him 5 minutes at the end of that England game. If everyone actually remembers, if they care to remember about that England game when France beat England, there was a very long VAR at that point for England's second penalty. And obviously the France goal came really late on as well. So by the time the changes were made, I'm pretty sure it was after the VAR check, and there was probably like 9 minutes of injury time. So in reality, he played more than you'd think, and it was just a tense game. So I don't think it's ever, oh, Southgate can't be trusted with Rashford or anything like that. I think it's been proven that a lot of managers have struggled to get the best out of him in general. I, however, probably would have still taken him over some of the peripheral players who he has picked. But I guess that already he's taken him out of the firing line. Maybe it's best for him if he doesn't do that. And his excuse for his reason for giving to not
His
giving him a
excuse.
place. Yeah, well, his reason was Anthony Gordon basically has had a better season than him, and I think they're pretty much really similar players. You know,
Yeah.
right-footed players who play on the left-hand side, blistering pace. You're probably only going to take one of them for player makeup and how they're going to affect a game. So yeah, I think Gordon going instead. He didn't really impress me in the friendlies that he played, even though for some people he did. But I totally see why Gordon is going ahead of Rashford.
Yeah, yeah, same. I think it might also be just a mentality thing in terms of Gordon is probably like buzzing, had a really good year, and Rashford's had an awful year. And Rashford is such a big personality, like in terms of he's been around that England squad for a while, that sort of having him there and maybe unhappy with himself and how he's performed compared to just having Anthony Gordon in, who is, can almost probably go fly under the radar a little more in the squad and just be, again, not bad, just
Hmm.
there and being good. He might not even end up on the actual plane to Germany, but it's a big call from Southgate. And
I
and
think I
and
think maybe Southgate as well has just been listening to Gary Neville too much, because Gary Neville has been absolutely gushing over Anthony Gordon simply because he did an interview with him and he was impressed that he got up early and he kind of looked after himself and he prepared for games. And he
maybe
was just like, honestly, I couldn't believe it. I was so impressed, so impressed. You know, when he does his
I'm a
podcast,
fan.
when he takes 5 minutes, when he takes 5 minutes off slagging off Manchester United. Like he just then goes, Anthony Gordon, so impressive.
I'm a fan, and maybe the alternative is maybe Southgate called Ten Hag and said, "What's going on?" And he's like, "This dude has threw me under the bus this season. He's jacked it in, but maybe he'll come back for England, or maybe this is the end. It's really like obviously way too early to tell, but he's not looking in a good position. Whereas I think Anthony Gordon's on the up, and we'll see,
Mm.
and it could always change. Um, I guess aside from Gordon, you could also say Rashford could have taken the place of Jack Grealish or James Maddison. Probably more so Grealish would be the head to head. Personally, I
Mm.
would pick Jack Grealish nine times out of 10. I was going to say 90 times out of 100. I just prefer him as a player for a team. I think he's just a better sort of team player, but Rashford is a much better goal scorer than him. So
I
there's
think,
two
yeah, and
sides of the
that's
coin.
and we'll come on to it in a minute as well, but taking Rashford out of the England side gets rid of a lot of the goals that have been scored for England over the last couple of years as well, or in the Southgate era. And Grealish really not played a lot this season. When he has, it's been in kind of like the the idiot games where he rotates the squad and does whatever he kind of feels like. And for all the bluster and the fun that Jack Grealish brings to England, actual cutting edge, it was the last Euros in one of the games where we saw that. And it was in two of those games in total. And that's the thing. And maybe if you'd have played him more, you got more out of him. But you've always got to think, who are you playing instead? I just think if you're chasing a game and you need someone to do something out of nothing, I'd probably say Rashford is going to do that more than Grealish. But I also understand that if it's a different game where you've got to be slow and methodical and keep the ball and recycle it and break a team down, Grealish is going to be your man to do that, really. So
This is
understandable, but it's player makeup again. And you can say, oh, we've got X amount of wide players who are going to run at a team and cut in on the right and score. If you just have nothing but the same player makeup, then really just bringing on one player who's exactly the same as another. There's no difference in the team anymore.
I'm kind of glad you went on both sides of the coin there, because my thinking as well earlier was a lot of people's arguments for Rashford being in the squad um, come down to who's going to but broadly, who's going to bang one in from 30 yards if you're absolutely desperate. But you would hope that those who are there instead of him mean that you could try and unpick a team in a different way, and you're not relying on someone to bang it in from 30 yards, which Rashford
Individual
can do.
moments, yeah.
Like Anthony Gordon's pace and kind of crossing, which has been pretty decent, and he's a decent finisher as well, could change a game. Grealish's kind of composure and little bits of trickery and innovation and his general kind of like foul winning could be a good thing. And if we're classing James Maddison as a competitor or somebody who's maybe kept Rashford out, then he brings his own qualities, which we all know of. And it wasn't that long ago when people were saying, well, people
Chris
who's
Sutton.
yeah.
Chris Sutton, he has to start for England. He simply has to.
It's his shirt now. I think that was the number 10 shirt.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rashford's not going. And just so I'm sure, I think this is the case. There's no chances. There's no if Southgate, he has to, all he can do is reduce this squad now. It's not a fresh 26-man squad that he announces, which is 99% likely going to be made up of this 33. It has to be this 33 cut down to 26.
Rashford's got the same chance of going here as Benson and Hedges have. There's just you have to pretty much pick this squad. You have to whittle this squad down. And then I'm assuming that if someone gets injured the day after it comes up, he has to pick from some of the players he's whittled down, basically, unless again there's loads and loads of injuries when he would be able to say, okay, Rashford, you're back in.
Yeah. Well, good luck to Marcus. I hope he has a nice summer off. I mean, it will be his first summer off in literally forever, I think. So fingers crossed he can turn it all back round and lead England to World Cup glory. In 2026, 50 years later. No, how many years is that? 60 years later. Right. Any other kind of surprises? Let's have a look there. I would class Jarell Quansah as a surprise, but also one that's very easy to cut. The lack of kind of, I would say, what's happened to Rico Lewis? I like the look of young Rico Lewis, and we need a left back.
Yeah, I think I just don't know. I don't think maybe Southgate is confident enough of where he plays in terms of he's not played a lot for England. He's maybe played twice, and I think he was good in one of those games. He also gave a penalty away. I think it's in terms of the fullback position, right back, they're probably okay. Left back's the worry. And I guess that him playing left back means that he's going to come into the central midfield more like he does for the club. And that's kind of what Walker does, get out of my way. So yeah, it's a bit odd. My strangest one probably is that Luke Shaw is in, which I think is good, even though he's played, I think, 15 times for Man United this season. And he kind of needs the games to keep fit and keep sharp. So him being in the squad, all being well, he goes to the tournament. And even if you only pick him for a knockout game, if England get that far, I'd probably say that's all right. But just having no left-footed backup left back option, because Chilwell's not in it as well. We haven't even said about that, but I guess it's just injuries and whatever stop that. No Tyreek Mitchell.
It's
I
weird.
found that quite strange to not include him when in this 30 whatever man squad, when you could have just picked him. He comes and tries, and then if he really impresses and you go, shit, we need that left back with a left foot, then he goes to the team, really.
Are we surprised Eric Dyer didn't make the squad?
There's been talk about him coming back, hasn't there? I just think that there's other players in there who are. I know he's been playing for Bayern, but newsflash, Bayern have not been doing very well. Even if he's been in the team when they've played okay at times, I just don't think it's. I don't think England are really lacking in that department. Really,
That's
they've
it.
got Guehi, they've got Gomez, Dunk, even Branthwaite and Quansah.
If
There's enough players there to fill in a Maguire and a Stones.
yeah, if Eric Dyer was a left back, he'd probably be in with a shout. But if there was a
Mm,
left back of his profile who'd been in the squad and around the squad, had been in and out of it, and was now doing decent on loans, there might be a name that rings a bell, but I just don't think there is. So we are struggling there, which makes
mm.
that Tyreek Mitchell one, the lack of Tyreek Mitchell, quite surprising.
I'm assuming it just means that Kieran Trippier, if Shaw doesn't go, Kieran Trippier will be the left back, which he was for one of the Euro games last time, the opening one, and everyone said, "What are you doing?" And it was fine. I guess the other option then is Joe Gomez, who's played there
Yeah.
a lot for Liverpool and has pretty much just filled in whenever they've needed someone. I'm not mad on that idea, but I don't think there's really, apart from if you were going to bring Mitchell in, I don't think there's anyone else who can play there. So you're just asking him to come in, do a job, and probably you're just going to change how you play your midfield a little bit more, your defense a little bit more, where you do ask Kyle Walker to go inside a little more, and you
Yeah.
just kind of change the way your midfield rotates slightly.
Are we over the era of England? We've got all the best right backs going, and that's a problem because I feel like Trippier, if he ends up being like a left back for a good amount of this tournament, I feel like he's played a lot of his England career at left back.
I
Like,
think it's just been, yeah, I think it's been the odd game in my head. I don't feel like he has. I think it's because there was that period of when England would play the back five, he and Walker would both play, wouldn't they?
yeah,
So that's
oh
where a
yeah,
lot of his
true.
caps have probably come.
Yeah, yeah. For some reason, I was thinking he played a lot there in the last World Cup, but I'm sure. Actually, I read the other day that Shaw played every minute of the last World Cup.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
fingers crossed. I mean, that is a problem potentially, but we we will see. In the midfield, Adam Wharton, we've mentioned a surprise, but a positive one. Kobe Mainu, I'd say not a surprise. He kind of impressed enough on his first kind of try with the England squad.
And the
Kurt,
fact that Wharton and Mainu have kind of been, there was a journalist who kind of tried to basically pick a fight between the two, wasn't there? He
yeah,
was just
yeah,
saying, like, we're talking about him. What about this guy? And it's like, well, there can be two good players. That's
yeah.
allowed.
It's a
And
good thing,
actually,
actually.
yeah, actually, let me shock you. It's good England have some good players. Like, you don't need to like make a new Lampard v Gerrard v Scholes debate. I think
Yeah.
with that as well, and Wharton actually being included is a surprise and is a really positive move, because if he does impress, I think it just works in terms of the makeup of the team, where you've got a holding player who's going to be able to just give and go and just do a really not unspectacular role. I think that's a really good thing that we could try and see if that will work for England with him in there.
The big midfield surprise is Curtis Jones. Not got an England cap. Seeming, I thought he was injured. I feel like
Hmm.
he's had a big injury this season. I'm pretty sure. I would not if yeah. There's no chance I would have guessed that he would have made this squad. That's not to say I don't rate him. I think he's a really good player, and I'm happy that he's in a England squad. Whether it's necessarily this one as his first one, but again, probably someone who's really easy to cut. Why do you think? Is it circumstances with a lack of players in that option? Is it Safegate going? I want, I've always wanted to pick your mate. But he was having a good season. Liverpool fan. I mean, he was kind
Hmm.
of. I think he was out of action when they kind of went a bit off the boil. So, what do you think of Curtis Jones in there?
Yeah, I think maybe it's just the chance that he's seen him a lot more through the youth system as well for England. You know, he's played like a million games for England under 21s, even though in my head he's about 27 now. I think it's surprising, because if you feel like he was going to pick somebody from that Liverpool team who's really versatile and has really good quality, why is Harvey Elliott not there? Like,
Hmm.
that's my thought in terms of he plays wide for Liverpool. He can play central midfield. He's got great delivery, an eye for goal. That's the one I'd have probably gone if you'd have had him in
Are they
the
not
the
different
larger
players though?
squad.
Like, isn't
I
Harvey
don't
Elliott
know.
more of like a James Madison, whereas Curtis Jones is more of a, I'm not going to say a Declan Rice, but more of a maybe a better Conor Gallagher.
Maybe I just feel like I've seen Elliot play enough in midfield
Yeah,
to
it's true.
do something like that. Maybe he hasn't got the legs to do it, and he wants like a shuttler, like he would have like a Lingard back in the day. I think he's looking for that kind of player of him, Gallagher,
You could still have
someone
Lingard
else in there.
if you really
Oh yeah,
wanted
well, Lingard
Lingard.
can do, yeah.
He could
Even though
still go in.
it's the South Korean season, and who knows when that starts and ends.
Yeah, that's oh yeah, of course, and he's very much needed at insert club name here. Let's just talk a bit more broadly then, because we've spoken about individuals, but uh, I'm trying to explain, trying to frame this next bit of conversation. We can say squad makeup. So, you could look at some like for example, Portugal's squad came out earlier today. Maybe a million squads came out, but I saw somebody tweet
Mm.
Portugal's and they're like, "Look at that attack! What a great like variety of
And
attackers."
Ronaldo's there.
Yeah, and Ronaldo. So if somebody was to look at England's defenders here as a collective, I mean, I would say, ooh, I would, I would say, ooh, I would, but I think my main thing would be you're either really experienced or you're really inexperienced at this level.
Mm.
You got Maguire, Stones, Trippier, Walker, Shaw, fine, Kwanzaa, Konsa, Gomez, Dunk, Branthwaite. They're not the most capped of folks, are they? That we
Mm.
might see that that's a running theme throughout the squad, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't like this is where the we need to win this tournament conversation falls for me because that's not a great defense.
I think you worry as well. Like maybe some of the players who are coming in with the less experience are going to be able to go on and do something really good for England, like a Branthwaite and Quanston. Maybe they're the next, centre back pairing for the next period of time.
Yeah.
But young right backs, you'd say Reece James, but he's always injured at the minute. So you remember when the golden generation, when it was like they have to win World Cup 2010.
Yeah.
And then by the time you got to World Cup 2014, England was starting like Gary Cahill, Phil Jagielka, Leighton Baines, and Glenn Johnson.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, what happened there?
Yeah.
And like this is what this feels like, and it's also the makeup in terms of the players who are out that are coming back in. So Maguire and Shaw have been injured for a while. I think Maguire's is less serious than Shaw, and he's played more. But they're both coming back from an injury to try and race back to be fit for all the tournaments. That's that whole left side of defence. Trippier's only recently come back himself, and he was out of form when he did get injured. And John Stones has played 111 minutes for City in the league since the 31st of March when they played Arsenal. So he's really undercooked as
I
well.
feel like he wasn't playing much at the start of the season before Christmas. I feel like he came in maybe around Christmas for a bit.
Mm.
By the way, if you want to, enjoy Euros fever with an England hat on, don't look at the France squad like I just have. Holy moly. Their centre backs options, Kanate, Saliba, Kunde, Upamecano. I mean, those are four banging options. I think we'd take pretty much anyone, especially Saliba. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, with Saliba apparently he's just getting slagged off as well and just being like, well, we've only included him because people have like they just won't shut up about it. And it's like he's fucking brilliant. Like
Yeah.
he'd walk into that England team.
Yeah. I think that it's going to be an experienced defense, and cross all your fingers that you know whoever needs to come in if there's an injury can handle it and doesn't have a stinker of a game. I mean,
I
say
think the guys who are probably going to be in and around the squad are there just in case someone else gets injured. And I know that's the case with any starting players and like bench players almost. But there's some of them like Conte, for example. I personally think he'll go, even if
yeah,
it's just because he's a guy who can play centre back and right back. Joe
yeah,
Gomez, I think, will go because he can play all along the back four. And it's just in case, really. There's a lot of just in cases behind them. Is no one going really pushing for a place to start for England and hasn't been given the chance, really. I mean, one player we didn't mention actually was Tamori. So he's not really played a lot for England. Southgate seemingly doesn't trust him. He's played for Milan for a couple of years now and it was really good. I don't know how he's done this season. I don't watch a lot of Milan, but clearly something's gone on there where maybe that's a new start for him under a different manager, but in a different, multiverse, maybe he could have been the one pushing.
yeah. Let me ask you this hypothetical question then. England back four for a big game, mate. It doesn't matter. They're all big. Kyle Walker, John Stones, Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw. You can accept that's a possibility.
Hmm.
Harry Maguire gets injured after 15 minutes. Who comes on to replace Harry Maguire? Who
I
is that
think you're
first guy?
probably, I think you're probably looking at Gehi. I think it's probably him that comes on just because Southgate has played him more and
And
he's quite quick there too.
let me stop you there then. Same situation, but instead of Maguire getting injured, John Stones gets injured. Who comes on
You're probably saying Guehi again.
again?
I
Okay.
think he's probably just the guy. It's not like there's a like for like replacement for each of like
Well, that's what I was looking at.
a
Just Lewis.
tackler and a header, for example, who's
I
going
was
to be
just
able to
looking at Lewis
sweep up.
Dunk and thinking like he makes sense as a Maguire replacement, maybe,
Mm,
even though he's got he's his own person. And then there's maybe others in there who are maybe John Stones. So I was curious as to whether you'd give the same answer for both, whether we have an
mm.
undisputed number 3 centre back, or whether it's horses for courses there. So
I
interesting.
think it's sometimes when you look at Dunk, we'll come on to it in a sec, but I don't think he'll go. I just have a
Okay.
feeling.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think that's a too controversial a take. I've kind of presumed he would until you just said it now, but we'll whittle it down ourselves shortly. Let's have a look at the midfield. Um, I feel like I feel like there used to be more midfield. I feel like back in the day, squads would probably have the same amount of defenders in now, but the midfielders and the attackers would be more equal. There's one, two, three, four, five, six, and he's going to have to get rid of one or two of those. So Trent Alexander-Arnold, Conor Gallagher, Curtis Jones, Kobe Mainoo, Declan Rice, and Adam Wharton. How would we group that then? I mean, I would say lacking.
Yeah, I for some reason just seeing Wharton in there again. I've only probably watched him once properly, and I was impressed with him. And there seems like a lot of people have seen more of him and gone, "Yeah, he's going to be a good player." Just him being in there is almost more of that assurance of if it doesn't work out well for Mainu or Gallagher in those games. You know, when Capello burnt through all of his goalkeepers, it
Yep.
feels like if Southgate does that with the midfielders, Adam Wharton coming and maybe starting that second game and coming on in the first makes things feel a bit more equal and even. As well, I think for a few of the players, if they do go, there is a surprise factor still on a lot of them. Of just saying that people aren't going to have much information on them or scouting reports to the length of if they would compared to like a Declan Rice. So you'd
Mm,
be thinking, actually, is that a bit of a surprise that someone's in there, like a Wharton? And is
yeah.
that a bit more impressive? But I guess England just have been lacking for years of real top quality centre midfielders that aren't Declan Rice.
Yeah. I guess part of the reason why there's so few midfielders is because he's picking two. Because Jude Bellingham is, like you say, shouldn't really be in with all the attackers because he'll be an
Mm,
attacking midfielder. And he's guaranteed starter if he's fit. I think there's an alternative world where Declan Rice, Kobe Mainu, and Curtis Jones is a nice. I'd like to just see that as
mm.
like in a Premier League team. I think it would do pretty good over the course of X amount of matches. I think you get a good amount of like ball retention and everything in there. Um, yeah, Bellingham is it's difficult this one. I know that Bellingham has to play at number 10, but I don't like. I think it's underestimated how much he's number 10 can also translate into somebody who helps out in midfield, and I think that's going to be really good for us. I know everyone's worried about this second midfield place next to Rice, but I wouldn't say to Bellingham, "You're not moving from that number 10 position. Like
Mm.
you need to stay in this area." He can chip in and help out at the back. I don't know what you think.
Well, look at like the was it the Italy game at Wembley that England won 3-1, and there was I think one of the goals like Jude Bellingham basically helped England break from midfield, and he was a classic Bellingham run, like there was in the World Cup against Senegal, where he just takes the players away from him and he just
Yeah.
runs England up the pitch himself. Like you say, he is allowed to do that basically for England and break and defend and all that. People just don't want to, make him have to be one of the two kind of floaty midfielders in front of a one in a Declan Rice. I think it's also not wanting to just give Declan Rice too much to do, which is
Yeah.
why you're looking at a Kobe Mainu next to him instead. And, I know it's a whole thing about, all right, we'll play Phil Foden in the middle. And someone made a point I was listening to the other day of like, it is going to depend about what Guardiola does with City is that he either wants to play Phil Foden out wide so he can get another midfielder in the centre midfield like Kovacic, or if he's more confident in the game, he'll play a Doku wide and Foden in the middle, which means that they're just going to overrun teams in midfield with quality rather than effort. And
God, it's just
I think this England team just needs the effort more than the quality because the quality is in other areas still. They're not as abundant as like the City side.
yeah. I just again things you'd love to. I would love to just see what Bellingham and Foden could do in those sort of games. But I think all of this, all of the thoughts like that I just come out with, kind of underestimates the power of Kane up
Mm.
front. You know, really the team still needs to be centered, sort of to some extent, around getting Kane the ball because he's one of the best finishers in the world, and Bellingham's a great player to do that and get goals himself. I just think Phil Foden is so good. It's such a shame that he's not guaranteed starter in a place where we've seen him cause a lot of damage this season.
But even in like the bigger games, he has not always played in central midfield. Like he's
No,
done
no,
it more this year next to De Bruyne because and when De Bruyne has been out, so they've kind of made it work when they've had to. But Foden still is doing a great job wherever he plays. So really, there shouldn't be an issue if he is playing wide. And he did start a lot there in the World Cup. It's not like he's hated by Southgate or anything like that. It's just he's just going to need to do a slightly different role, but still have the freedom to go and do something really good. And he is going to be starting for England. There's no two ways about it, really,
I would
unless
think so.
he does start again and his form isn't up to it.
Well, that is it. Yeah, I guess we'll see whether he's improved enough this year where he can just be like, doesn't matter what you do, I'm just gonna like lead a game because in the
Mm,
past he's the only manager who's played for other than Southgate is Pep, and he spends a
mm,
lot more time with Pep than Southgate, and it might just be a tricky for him to adapt to what somebody else wants, and also the team's completely different. But he's
yeah.
such a talent, and if his England career passes him by for one reason or another without having a few big moments, it will be a real shame because he's one of the best English talents I've seen in my life, just in terms of like
Mm.
excitement around him. I think he towers above the likes of Rashford, um, Grealish. Like I think he's a
His
level of
generation, definitely. Yeah, I think
yeah,
it's just unfortunate for England that two players who would do incredible at number 10 have come along at the exact same time.
yeah,
And there is a way of getting them in there because these players are just more flexible, especially a Foden. I mean, in the Scotland away game last year or whenever it was, maybe a bit longer than that, I think he started on the right and he still played and he still did well. So
mm,
it's just gonna he is so flexible. You can pretty much play him anywhere. You just have to think about his defensive workload, which is why I wouldn't have him and Bellingham and Rice in that team together in a midfield three.
yeah.
And one thing he's yet to do for England really is add goals. And I think that's
No,
kind of the other thing that I'm looking at in the England team, and actually surprisingly being a bit worried.
yeah. Well, in terms of the goals, where are the goals going to come from?
Yeah, because England's top scorers in here so far are Harry Kane, who's got 2,386 goals.
Yeah,
That's how many goals he's got for England. Saka, who has 11. Harry
yeah,
Maguire has 7. He is England's third top scorer of these available players in this team.
yeah,
Foden 4. Then you've got Watkins, Bellingham, Rice, Stones, and Shaw on 3. Alexander Arnold and Grealish on 2, and then Trippier, Walker, and Tony on 1 apiece. So that's quite a drop off, really, from Harry Kane, even from Saka.
yeah. I wouldn't. I'm not too. I just don't think there's anyone else that we could have called up who could contribute
No.
more. You know, and a lot of them don't have the chance. I do get the point. I definitely get the point, but somebody we haven't mentioned, Cole Palmer. I mean, if he's on the pitch and he gets a chance, I'd back him to put it away. I don't think we've got players who can't score goals. I think Kane hoovers them up for England,
Mm.
and the team has been around kind of like servicing him, really. I guess Rashford probably would come into that equation where he has scored a decent amount for England. And Raheem
Yeah, yeah.
Sterling obviously was alongside Kane for a while and could still be just crazy when you think about it, isn't
It
it?
feels like that this is weirdly a transitional period for England from going from that Southgate team to the next team now, whoever that next manager is going to be. It's just unfortunate that Kane is probably he'll probably still play at the next World Cup, but his best years are about to go behind him. And actually, by the next tournament, Saka will be more developed, Foden will be more developed, Palmer, Bellingham. You have got those big players then who will end up playing a lot more for England over the next 2 years, racking up even more caps and doing even more, like adding to those goals that they just don't have at the moment.
Yeah. So how would you kind of sum up the attackers then? I think so far we've gone for kind of mishmash at the back, kind of functional servicing in midfield, kind of like they're the facilitators. And I think the attackers, God, I think we're underestimating the Cole Palmer. It's like
Yeah.
he he's going to be the Jack Grealish of this summer. I mean, not everyone's going to fancy him as they did with Jack Grealish, men and women included. But he has had such a good season, and he's clearly such a good player that give me a tight 1-1 game with 20 minutes to go just to see him
Mm.
come on for that moment of right. Come on.
Yeah,
He's
I,
had a
I, I
great
de- I
season.
definitely agree on that. I think he is going to be that new. You have to find a way in for him. Like England don't need any more of that. But now there's another one that's come along. Of you just simply have to find a way. Like I've seen teams that have like got him playing centre midfield or him playing wide left, which I don't think he ever really ever plays for Chelsea. He started off on the right and he moved more central.
Yeah,
As their season progressed and he became more influential as well. I think him being that first change, wherever it's going to be along the England kind of front three, really, is going to be the really interesting one. And maybe it's a thing where he forces himself into the team just through sheer will and performance over
could
someone
be.
like a Saka, who's kind of had his little injury problems as the season's gone on, started really well and's gone off the boil a bit. Like he wasn't really dragging Arsenal through games by the end of it.
You
So you
said
wonder, is it going to be him who makes way?
you said there about the first sub element, which I'd imagine if we need a goal, he probably would be that guy. Imagine this though, take your mind back to Euro 2021. You're Jack Grealish. You are the first sub, and everyone in the country loves you. You come on, you do well, um, and get to help England get to the final. You then move to Manchester City for 100 million. You help them win a treble, and then you're thinking, right, Euro 2024, where am I? And it's like you're probably second sub after a kid who's at Man City now, who's never going to play for them, and we'll move to Chelsea, who do awful the year of the tournament. It's just crazy.
Also, Ollie Watkins, who's just been fine for years, he's going to be the change up front for Kane probably. So you're not really second change anymore. Oh, and that guy who was banned for almost a year for betting, he's probably going to get a chance as well to play. So it's really circumstantial, isn't it, for Grealish? Of it's going to have to be the right game for him to come on and play, rather than we just have to find
Yeah,
a way to get him in the
I
team or
mean,
play him or anything like that.
I could see a scenario where he doesn't get a minute.
Yeah, same
You
here.
know, there's many factors, but exciting attackers definitely, and some good choices. Fingers crossed. There's not an injury to Kane because that would be a scupper, or somebody like Saka as well, who I think he missed the Arsenal game at the weekend, but
Mm.
that was a big game. So you wonder why didn't they play him?
Yeah, he must have had something that was relatively serious, really, and he probably thought they've got enough to do without me, But you still think he wants to be on there just in case they could have won the league.
Yeah,
So it must have been something where it's like, no, he's failed that fitness test. It's like protection of the player. We just can't risk him.
yeah. Should we do Gareth Southgate's job for him and whittle
I
this
think so.
squad down? So we're going to convert it from 33 to 26, which means we've got to find 7 names to put a big red X through. I would suggest that you could start with taking a goalkeeper out, and I would suggest that that goalkeeper would be James Trafford.
Yeah, I'd say it's James Trafford as well. I don't think he's played for England yet. He lost his place in the Burnley team as the season went on as well. I'd say probably, yeah, he's the one where maybe for the future it'll be really interesting to see what he can do. But for now, I think he goes. Agreed.
Yeah. Um, they'll take free goalkeepers though, right? I think, do you have to take free
Yeah.
goal? You do, yeah.
Yeah, you do, yeah, because there was wasn't there the North Korean guy who pretended to be a goalkeeper, and he was just like, yeah, really, I don't think you can do that. And he was like, well, if he plays, he's going to have to play in goal. Like you couldn't just play him as a striker, which is what he was.
So that leaves us with six to remove. Can I suggest we move to the other end of the board and look at Harry Kane, Ivan Toney, or Ollie Watkins and ask the question: will all three go?
I think they will simply because Kane is Kane. Watkins has had the best season of his life, and I think Tony is like the best understudy for Harry Kane that does similar things to him, and he's a good penalty taker. So I'd probably
Okay,
say all three go.
that's interesting. We'll see if we're struggling at the end. You might have to.
Hmm.
Let's go back, skip back to the defense. Then we're all over the place here. Kwanzaa, surely very easy.
I think he won't go. No, I think he won't go, and I think Jared Branthwaite personally, I don't think he'll go either.
Well, let's have a look then. So Lewis Dunk, that would mean Kwanzaa, Guehi, Dunk, Gomez. Yeah, I could see that. Should we read him out?
Yeah,
So far out of the seven, we've got three gone, and they're Branthwaite, Kwanzaa, and Trafford, which I think is fair enough. I'd like to see Branthwaite go, but I don't know why. Because
I think
hopefully,
he's just looked decent, and he just seems like that light at the end of the tunnel in terms of a long-term Maguire replacement as well. He just
yeah,
seems like a bit of a sensible thing, and I've liked him when he's played. He feels like a sensible, like used to be English type player where he's really physical, but he's actually really good on the ball too.
yeah. Adam Wharton and Curtis Jones. Trent Alexander-Arnold's
I,
got to go, right? Like not
yeah,
just for any reason other than for fuck's sake. Like, is he ever going to go to a tournament and like this has been?
do
I mean,
something.
I know he has, and he probably could still go to this tournament and do nothing. But there's almost no point in putting him in this squad if you're going to cut him from it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Rice, Gallagher, Mainu, and Arnold who do go. I don't think it's going to be Curtis Jones, so I would say he's out
Yeah,
personally.
I'd say Wharton's probably out as well.
I would take him.
Let's keep him in there and then see if we're struggling. Because at the
Mm,
minute we've got now four gone, so we need to find three more.
hmm
So you're going to whittle three out of the list of Bellingham, Foden, Saka, Palmer, Gordon, Grealish, Eze, Bowen, and Madison. I'd say Eze and Bowen could go.
You'd get rid of Eze and Bone, would you?
Personally, yes, but yeah,
I'd say Bowen is more likely personally to me. I would not take him simply because I think England have got other players who do what he does better. I think Palmer, in terms of a wide player who could play there, and Saka, you've kind of got the right-sided players, which is where he's going to play really. Who's going to, yeah, I just think international football with this team is a bit step too far for Bowen.
I agree. I agree, but we've got to find another two out of there, haven't we?
Well, the other option is you can take one of those attackers out that aren't the strikers and one defender as well. Because I think we've got enough defenders
Let
almost
Have we got enough
for
defenders?
a back four and one. I think you could lose a centre back in there. If
I'm
we're saying
petrified
Maguire,
looking.
Stones,
I'm
yeah,
petrified looking at that defense. I don't want to take any.
Maguire,
Well, Lewis Dunk.
just more. You just want more of them. It doesn't mean if they're only good. You just want more defenders in case.
It's like an alcoholic just knowing that they've got a bottle of booze in the house. Like it makes me calmer. Um, Lewis Dunk probably then because all the others can kind of play fullback or centre back.
Yeah, I think I would have in past times. I think I'd have taken Dunk just because I've always thought he was quite comfortable on the ball and he's
Yeah,
quite press resistant. And that I just don't think at international level, from even like the last games against Brazil and Belgium, he was quite poor in those games. And if England are going to win, then maybe whatever he is, 33-year-old centre back who's okay on the ball and is probably not in a perfect Brighton team, then that's probably not the one you take. So I'd say Dunk would not go for me. So you'd be taking Maguire, Stones, Walker, Trippier, Shaw if fit. I think if not, you still are just going to have to take Dunk and you just have to live with it. And then
Yeah,
so Shaw, Gomez, Gray, and Conser are the ones I'd probably end up taking. So you've one
absolutely
more
fucking
out.
mental that is. If you think back to
Yeah.
maybe even 12 months ago, like I would never have thought that Gomez or Consa would have been in that. We joked about Consa being in it when we played FIFA at Eds before.
Yeah.
About didn't he have like an epic game and we called him up for the England squad, and even in that comedy chips and beer night, we didn't flip him, give him a kick. But yeah,
Yeah.
I agree that really scares me. And the thing is, we've just got another right back in midfield, but that's not helpful.
I
Like,
know, yeah. If it was a left back, great.
yeah, yeah,
All supporting that. But yeah, I think so. To me, Bellingham, Foden, Saka, Palmer are going to go. I think Gordon's going to go simply because he's taken Rashford's place.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're getting rid of one of Grealish, Eze, or Madison.
I think it's easy.
No, it's Eze.
Oh yeah, I saw your eyes light up, and then I thought, is he thinking what I'm thinking? Then you'd already said, um, not
You'd
that it's
say,
easy
yeah.
because of his quality. Like I just think Grealish is an established name in the squad, and Madison, it's his number 10 shirt to lose. Now I don't know. Exciting choice would be Eze. I haven't seen enough of Crystal Palace, and I think I said that earlier that I haven't to know how good his form has been.
Hmm.
But I also know that James Madison's form hasn't been great. So then has Eze's form? He has actually been banging in the assists, hasn't he? Or I don't even know.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, he has been really good. He's been kind of like that front forward line of Palaces is like pairing again, with Elise in there as well and Mateta. Yeah, I just think with Eze, there's a bit of the unknown about him, which is really
yeah.
interesting. And
And,
it's a bit of like he's probably going to do something similar to a Grealish, probably a bit quicker.
and maybe,
Is my thing. I'm not saying that you don't take Grealish. I think no one does what he does in terms of ball retention in that front team as well as him. I
yeah,
would probably say that Palmer is going to do better compared to what Madison is going to do. I'd
I'm
kind of
thinking
maybe
as
say
well.
Madison's you want to lose out
Yeah,
personally.
I'm thinking, I've gone from saying it's easy to thinking maybe just getting Madison out just does away once more with you've got to find a place for him conversations. Because people will
Hmm.
still say that about Madison for no reason other than that he's like a creative midfielder who can play at number 10, which is all, myself included, that's all that anybody wants to see. But Aze's an unknown, and it's gonna it'd be interested to see how he uses those two in these two games.
Hmm.
Let's fuck Madison off then.
Yeah, I think to do that, and now he's in.
He's in.
Yeah, Eze, he's in.
Yes. And that is seven, isn't it? Trafford, Kwanzaa, Branthwaite, Dunk, Jones, Bowen, and Madison. Okay. 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 Adam Wharton, Eze, surprising me.
Hmm.
Conser. No. Right. Should we do what 11 are we picking then? Are we picking like an 11 for if we're playing France? Are we picking
Every
just an
everyone's
11?
everyone's fit. You play in France.
You're playing France. Would that be a different everyone's fit, you're playing Scotland?
Well, it's only Scotland.
Or for the purposes of this experiment,
It's
it's
going
the
to be, yeah,
same
to me,
team.
it's essentially by saying it's France, it's your most important game and everyone is fit.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Jordan Pickford would start in goal, wouldn't he?
Mhm.
I don't see it. I mean, Dean Henderson, has he always been making these squads or no, well, it'd
No,
been
I
with
think
Pope, wouldn't he?
he's only just come back in because Pope only played the last game of the season
Yeah.
and isn't really of the makeup of what Southgate wants, which is again, Ramsdale's done well to get in there. Like all those England keepers coming through, all of a sudden have gone off a cliff apart from Pickford. And
Yeah.
Henderson's only in there because Sam Johnson was injured.
Yeah.
So it's just like bloody hell, like it's
I
proper
shouldn't
default.
I shouldn't really I'll just tell you anyway. Jen's dad was over at the weekend, and there was nothing. The only football on was Celtic, and he was saying, "Oh, don't. I'm not really a Pickford fan." And then Joe Hart was in goal for Celtic, and he was like, "Well, what's wrong with him? He was a good keeper. Why don't they have him in the squad?" And I was like, "Nah,
What's wrong with him? How
he
long have you
really
got?
He really fell off a cliff, I said. And then at the end of the game, he announced his retirement in front of the whole stadium.
It's so John Terry, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's like, what about him? Yeah, you're right, actually. Oh, no, he's retired. Uh, so it'll be Jordan Pickford starting up front. What about him? No, I'd forgot he existed, to be fair. I was shocked he was playing.
What, Joe Hart?
Yeah. Like I thought I knew he'd gone to Celtic at some point, but I thought he was like, you're not even getting a kick here. Maybe it was just because it was his last game. I don't know if he's played much this season.
I think he's been their number one keeper, even though, like you, I still think Fraser Forster is their keeper.
Yeah. And the defense then, four at the back, are we saying?
Yeah,
Yeah. Kyle Walker. Yeah, it's got to be,
indeed.
hasn't it? Harry Maguire, John Stones, right? You're not dropping over them. And we're saying Luke Shaw.
Luke Shaw, if
Slash
fit.
Kieran
If not,
Trippier.
I think Kieran Trippier is going to be doing the job share, isn't he?
Yeah. Right now, I know this is where things are going to get interesting, but let's just say Declan Rice first.
Agreed.
Go on, you can say the next name.
I would say Kobe Mainu. I think he is the most player. You know, it's really harsh because you're basically saying the same thing about Adam Wharton. The difference is Kobe Mainu has had a bit longer in the Premier League. He's played for England. I know it's a really basic thing, but he's literally
About
played for
40 minutes.
England.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So he's done well when he has done.
It does
I think
feel a
Gallagher.
lot like you're basically saying, and not because of your bias, which I know you're putting to one side. It's basically saying it's because he plays for Man United and the other guy plays for Crystal Palace.
Which has been the comparison with him recently. I just think if you look at the rest of Adam Wharton yet to play, I mean, maybe if he plays so well and maybe he does force himself in there, if we think he goes by the time we get further into the tournament, possibly. I think Alexander Arnold, if you play in France, yeah, the idea we were speaking to someone the other day and they were saying they'd have loved to have seen Alexander Arnold come on against France for Jordan Henderson when Mbappe just couldn't be asked to walk back and just cause a bit of mischief down that side. And that is the change where you think, actually, if you bring him on as an attacking player in midfield, I just don't think you start him because it's too dangerous. And Gallagher, I think, is just fine. And I wouldn't have a problem with him starting. I just think he's a bit vanilla for it all.
You've just it's funny, isn't it? The phrases come up a lot. Like he's a bit vanilla for it all. I'm on a campaign at the moment about vanilla because I love vanilla. It's like the best, and people use it as a term to mean plain and boring, but it's not. It's just a really good flavor, and therefore it's become the most popular flavor. For example, ice cream. Vanilla isn't plain flavored ice cream because that would taste like nothing. It's vanilla flavored.
All
I'm not
right,
saying
then.
that Conor Gallagher's the best. I'm saying Kobe Mainu should play, but
So Kobe Mainoo's the vanilla, and Conor Gallagher is ready salted.
ready. I'll continue my campaign elsewhere. I've said it. I've given it too much airtime on this podcast now.
It's like a campaign for real ale or something, or for real gravy off bloody off
For real.
Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. For real respect towards vanilla. Kobe Mainu and Declan Rice. Brilliant. I can't wait to see that midfield, and I think it's going to be what it is. And before I forget to say it, you got me on my soapbox now. This squad, and if this team is similar to what he plays, mainly thinking of the Kobe Mainu thing, the Southgate being cautious and reserved and not taking risks thing has to just die. It should have died from the very start because he's done nothing but change and take calculated, fair enough, but risks. Like you look back at the 2018 squad and bringing in Pickford, Maguire, Eric Dyer. Like there's a
Jesse
lot.
Lingard starting those games, putting Kyle Walker to both the right centre back and in a three, which he'd never played really before.
Yeah, and just that was the first example of it. Then you go to the Euros and he's playing Calvin Phillips from the start and keeping him in there throughout. Whilst the argument was he didn't play Jack Grealish and he brought him in and he's played him. Then leading up to the World Cup, it's we just gotta stop playing five at the back, and he does, and he plays four at the back, and we go out to France, but we go out with our heads held high in the sense of that wasn't anywhere near the worst England performance to exit from a tournament, and now it's like he's gonna pick bloody Henderson, isn't he, and players like that. Well, he's stuck by Harry Maguire and I have to hold my hands up there because Harry Maguire has always done really well for England, and I have no problems with him starting. But he's sacked Henderson off for one reason or another, and he's brought in the young Crystal Palace kid and the young Man United kid who are both really untested, and there's a good chance one of them will start. He's
Yeah.
also brought in Cole Palmer, and he's got rid of the big name Marcus Rashford for Anthony Gordon, who's done well.
Picking players on form, like you say, Gordon and Watkins as well, in terms of, really exciting players who've had great seasons as well.
Yeah, so I think the rest of the team then is Jude Bellingham playing ahead of Mainu and Royce, with Kane playing ahead of Bellingham. I also think on the wings you've got Saka and Foden. Are those undisputed picks?
I'd say so. My only thing is, how fit is Saka? And
Oh, don't say that.
but
Don't
just in
say that.
terms of, like, if if it's France and everyone's fully fit, great. I think it's just very, very easy to bring Saka off, which I think they did in the World Cup, because it's like, oh, bloody Saka, what does he actually do? Well, he's actually been England's Player of the Year the last 2 years, and
He's
he shouldn't
amazing.
be forgotten what a really good player he has been for England, and still is at quite a young age. I think
Yeah.
Palmer is just the new shiny toy where you do go, that would be interesting. But the one thing I'd say in this England team, apart from Kyle Walker, there's not many quick players. And Saka is that change of pace now. Now Rashford isn't going. Gordon from the bench probably, but Gordon's not going to start.
Yeah.
So that's where you go, yeah, you need a bit of pace in there. So Gordon and Saka in that front line are that for you.
Yeah. But you'd start Foden on the left.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. He's rapid. Underestimatedly quick because he's so good
He's
on the ball.
quick. Yeah, he's quick, but it's not like you see him racing through on goal. I think he's
No.
got the technique that kind of keeps the ball under his control a lot, and he's quick enough.
And he
But
just
it's not
ghosts
like,
players with his
yeah,
touch and
it's not like
skill.
not like a Rashford who runs past someone, or like a Gordon like that too.
Well, there we go. I mean, just for records, Pickford, Walker, Stones, Maguire, Shaw or Trippier, Rice, Mainu, Bellingham, Kane, Foden, and Saka. I mean, that is exciting, and the bench isn't too bad either. We just got to hope that. I mean, okay, one more before we go. Who's like, say, if two players got injured, like, who's the worst two players it could be? Because as good as Bellingham is, I wouldn't say losing him is the worst thing that could happen.
Even if he's probably like the best player in the
Even
world at the moment, because
because
Foden or
Foden,
Palmer could just go there.
yeah. So I think Rice is probably the biggest disaster.
Yeah, because you wouldn't really want to be starting a major tournament with Gallagher and Mainu in midfield, or Wharton and Mainu, or Alexander Arnold and Gallagher. Like, that just feels like too mental.
Alexander Arnold and Adam Wharton in midfield.
I mean, who would have had that?
I
Like,
know.
after the World Cup, going, this bloke no one's ever heard from Blackburn, and Liverpool's right back.
Yeah, I think is is Maguire the other one, or is Stones the other? Oh, Kyle Walker probably right. Still, even still,
I think it's still Kane, just because you
yeah,
can't underestimate his scoring record for England. And Tony and Watkins could come in and do a fine job for them or whatever, but they're just nowhere near Harry Kane's level of one of the all-time great Premier League strikers, European strikers, and England's best striker ever.
yeah. That's I'm sorry to end it on a hypothetical about players getting injured, but
It's that
good
time of year.
good chat, and we'll be back soon to talk about old England games and current England games and build up to Euro 2024 and all that. I'm more excited than I was at the start.
Yes.
I'll give you that. So yeah, thank you everybody for listening.
Thank you.